This machine is a Costway portable rolling air conditioner. I bought it one summer when it was very hot and I did not have an air conditioner that actually worked in the house, and so as a cheap route I decided to buy this. An important piece of the puzzle is also to make sure we have the right tools on hand to do the job. The initial control board on top is a Phillips head screwdriver, or a Phillips head screw. I've got a Phillips head screwdriver, so we'll take these off one at a time. I don't work with electronic screwdrivers as some other scrappers would do. I tend to like to do everything manually. I like seeing how things are put together and what they're made out of. And in doing so, it just takes time. And I also find it very helpful that as you take these pieces off, to put each item in its respective spot, your collection zone. Don't make a mistake like I did earlier in this recycling hobby. Is when things came off, I would just put everything in a big giant box, and then find out later and down the road that I would have to then go back and separate each little piece out. This is the controller board. This piece here is the top portion where you would push down what function you'd like it to do. This piece now is plastic and can be put in your plastic recycling area. These are what you are actually pushing on. Talks to the computer and goes about its way. There's a little chip here, may have gold in it. I'll take that one off and experiment with it, see what's in there. These pieces are probably just going to be steel, although they could be brass. Wire is hard coated on there, cannot pull it off. So what I do in this situation is just take the wire snips and get rid of it. All right. Also helps to have a clean working environment so you're not knocking things over. I mean, this is a very strong magnet. There is some pull. It's not a whole lot. I'll have to figure out what I want to do with that later. Those might actually be brass, but they could actually be stainless steel in a way because of the lack of the magnetic. All right, things are going to get loud because I'm going to start breaking things. Because again, I don't have a screwdriver that actually will do the trick. All right, we have a bigger circuit board here. Again, more screws. And yes, not every time are you going to catch the screws, and as long as you have a good cleanup process in the end, you know where the screws are going. Have to watch out that you don't step on things. You don't want to screw in the bottom of your foot. Now, as far as the trash people go, they may or may not like these screws still in the plastic pieces or not. I tend to want to clean off everything so that I know that metal's not going into the plastic recycler and plastic's not going to the metal recycler. So everything that can be taken apart, I take apart. And that leads to a good story while I take these three screws out of this piece of plastic. I first got started into scrap recycling, I guess nearly 10 years ago. It's probably more than that by now if I'm thinking correctly. But it might be maybe 6 years ago. Started cleaning up items around my home that I no longer wanted, things that were rusted. You know, you buy a grill, one of those cheap $20 grills, you leave it outside too long, rust gets a hold of it, and you don't want it anymore. So I took a grill to the recycling company, and I had a printer. See, there's a screw right there, one that I pulled off, so I need to take that out. I had a printer, a computer printer, that no longer worked, didn't want it. And so I took it into the recycle place too. I looked them online. They said they take these items, and so I took it in. And I asked him how much he would give me for it. I didn't know anything about a recycle yard, didn't know what it was. Asked him what he would give me for it, and he gave me X amount of dollars on the pound for shred. But he said, now, if you've taken it apart and gotten all this plastic out of here, I would have given you more money for it because the individual parts are worth more than the sum of the whole. So I took that to heart, and ever since that day, I've been taking apart pretty much everything that either doesn't work anymore or everything that I can possibly take apart. And then, you know, you got those movie programs like How It's Made, and they show you how, you know, something's made. I like to know how things are made and how to take them apart. And there was a funny there one day. My mother asked me, "Oh, you got it apart, can you put it back together again?" And I was like, well, I could, but it wouldn't work. So, all right, this cable here that we cut previously off the first board actually has a plug in this board, so I can unplug it without having to cut it. There's connectors inside this plug that could be gold plated. I'll have to look into it a little deeper and break it apart and see what's actually in there. And some people take these connectors off. You know, they snip it here. They take the wire off, snip it here with the connectors. Put the connectors in a big bag, bucket, whatever, and sell them on eBay to individuals who then want to take the connector apart, take the pin out, get the gold plated off the pin, and you know, they're into the gold refining. Me myself, I'm just gonna clip this off, put this in my bucket, take the cord, the wire, and put it into my insulated wire pile. This is too small of a gauge for me to actually want to take a knife or something to it and try to get the copper out of there, even if there is copper in there. This may actually be aluminum wire on the inside. I heard once that if you bend it, if it snaps back, then it's probably not copper. That bent pretty well and kept its form, so there probably is copper wire in here. These are all LED lights. I think they're LED lights. That's a speaker box, makes noise. There's some more gold plated connectors in here. These are all, I think these are capacitors. I'll have to check on that. This definitely is a capacitor. They say the blue has silver in it. I don't know if you can tell or not, but these are the aluminum items here. This one here is not shiny like the aluminum. off of experience of taking other boards apart, I can tell you that that is a little spool of copper. The magnet will actually stick to that little piece. And it does stick. It's not very strong, but it is sticking per se. So in breaking this one down just a slight bit, I want to show that there is copper in there. And there it is. See the long strand of copper? Not much. This would be considered number 2 copper. But each component that you can take out and take off the boards, each little itty bitty piece of copper that comes with, it all weighs. And you know, a pound of copper in today's prices in the US is, in my area, is going for $3.30. So I'll put this number 2 in with the rest of my number 2, and eventually it'll start weighing a pound. Leave the rest of that on the board. It's not needed. Cut the wires off. This board would be considered a low-grade board. It's not very much valuable stuff on it. I think I called these capacitors earlier. They're not. They're IC chip, a form of an IC chip. And I believe they do have gold in them as well. Some may have gold, some may have copper in them. But I'll have to, there's a chip on the back that'll come off, and there's another chip that'll come off. But this will be thrown into a low, what I would consider a low-grade board, my low-grade board pile. All right. More wires, more wire connectors. I have a twist tie here holding this bundle together. This wire here went to the outside world and connected to the actual plug when the plug was connected. This bundle of wires is actually going into this engine. A lot of what I do here is just trial and error, see what works, see what doesn't work, where the screws are, what I can take off, what I can't take off, and go from there. Which is probably which is what you'll find in most of the times you're taking something apart. You don't know how it comes apart, what pieces go where, and so you'll just dig down in and see what parts, where the parts go, and what you can get off, what you can't get off. It's all trial and error, and for me it's therapeutic. I sit here and think about the day that I had in the office and what I did and what I didn't accomplish. Sometimes I stop right in the middle of my scrapping and go back and try to accomplish what I was trying to accomplish on my work day, if I can. But if I can't, then I just continue to scrap and think about what we're going to do this weekend. We're going to go anywhere. A lot of devices these days have engines in them, big and small. Here is an engine. It's a copper bearing engine, a motor, if you want to call it a motor. That's another Phillips head screwdriver, Phillips head right there. Take that off. I try to break things down as far as I possibly can get them to get to the, yep, lost another screw. That's okay, I'll find it later. All right. Can I sell these parts? Yes, I probably could. Should I sell these parts? No, I probably couldn't, because I don't know how to test them to see if they work. This thing did work at one time, but now it probably doesn't. I can't guarantee that it does work. I'd rather take it apart, see what's on the inside. I'll do another video what's closer up where we can actually see what's going on here, but there are little I'm gonna call them flanges. It's not what they're called, but little pieces of metal that are on this round piece, folded down and stuck to this piece so that it all sticks together. You can take your wire snips, grab a hold of it, pull it back, do that all the way around the device, and then the two come apart. On the inside is going to be a circular magnet around the frame, and then inside that will be copper wrapped around steel, which produces the engine. But I'll do another video on that later. All right. I also like to keep the wires as long as they possibly can. You'll have other scrappers that'll go in here and they will start snipping left and right, and just to get to the meat of the process, I kind of like to leave things as whole as I can leave them. In here, these wires are going in here. Is there copper on the inside of this? Yes, there probably is. Do I really want to go through the effort of taking it apart? No, I really don't. I've seen these before. For the time and the money and the process of doing it, it's just not worth my time to go in there. What do you categorize this? Where would you put it? Not sure a magnet's going to stick to it. I could be wrong. Nope, it's not sticking to a magnet. If you know where I should put this, put it in the comments. But seeing as how it's plastic, it did come from an electrical box. It doesn't have any magnetism to it. I'm probably gonna first stick it in the plastic container and see if they'll take it as plastic. Other than that, it would have to go in the regular trash. I'm not too sure what to do with it. I may actually break it into it with a hammer and chisel and see what's on the inside for real, and maybe that'll be another video. Put in the comments if you want to see me do that, so we all can know what's in there. This is some kind of liquid that hardens. They pour it in there and seal it up, but at this point I don't know what's in it, so we'll just hang on to it and break into it a little later in time. All right, wires are getting closer to be ready to probably click off the engine here. Another big engine. More screws. Alright, more plastic pieces, and that's where I clipped it. Now, not sure if you want to zoom in on your camera or not, or whatever you're viewing this on or not, but this is a copper wire. I will be stripping this wire. There's a good copper in there. It would still be number 2 copper, but there's a good copper in there. So number 2 copper based on the tensile strength. If it's this will be I guess what you call hair size copper. It's all wrapped around. It's not a thick piece of copper like this steel screwdriver here. This is a thick solid piece. The pieces of copper in here are like your hair. They're very, very thin. They're all wound together to make a thicker piece, but they're still just the hair type copper. And so, but I'll still strip that and get it out. It's got good weight to it. All right, getting in here a little deeper, more screws. I'm getting to a point now where I'm gonna have to take my handy dandy hammer and go to town again because I can't reach that screw. I was really hoping that I could get into this a little better. And yes, you know me by now, I don't have any Don't have any gloves on, so I'm running a risk of killing my fingers. But I did find another screw, and maybe I can get this engine out before I have to pause the video. This one looks nice and big. I need to get my file out and see if it is actually copper or whether it's aluminum in there around the windings. Most things come apart pretty simple. I mean, someone had to put it together, right? So some items actually are put together with pressure. And you just have to snap them off if you can. All right, I believe we can take the motor out now. I'm hoping I can take the motor out. And we didn't get it out. Why? Well, 9 times out of 10, there's a fan at the other end of this shaft that's holding it in here, and that's a problem. So now I've got to get my hammer together and try to break this apart some more. I'm going to save you the noise. Got my safety glasses on, so I'm not going to be hurting myself. I'm going to go ahead and cut the video off now. I'll bring you back online when I get this taken apart. With the amount of time that I wasted on this thing to actually get it to do what it had to do to heat the house or cool the house, to wait for the pieces to actually get frozen enough to put it in the water, to try to make it swivel like it was supposed to swivel. This is actually very therapeutic, and I am sad that I spent $200 on this thing. Waited several weeks for it to actually get shipped from someplace in Oregon. But very happy that I just took it apart. I know, it's strange, but it was mine to buy, or it was mine to disassemble. Not mine to buy, it was somebody else's who was selling it. It was mine to disassemble. I had gotten out of it what I thought I could get out of it. And as soon as I had enough money to buy a brand new air conditioning for my upstairs portion of my home, I looked at this device like, I don't need you anymore. I don't want you anymore. I want to know what you're made out of. So I am going to disassemble you and donate your parts to the recycle company. So that's what I'm doing. Trying to find all the screws I can possibly get out. Now there are screws here, 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 and here. When I get a screwdriver that is long enough, this one's long enough, but because of this piece and the curvature of this unit, it goes but only so far, and I cannot get to the screws. I don't have a screwdriver long enough to make it down there, so it's gonna have to wait until I can convince my spouse that I need to go to Harbor Freight and buy new things. Which is part of the fun of taking things apart. You have to have tools at which to do it. Like in a previous video, I discovered that I have 2 adapters that need screws, a screwdriver that has a Y head, something similar to like that. It's got a base, it's got a piece coming in this way and a piece coming this way. So I guess it's sort of looking like that, but that's what they have. I do have them, but in a larger size than what that screw requires. So that's for another day. All right, so we got half the piece apart, and we're left with this half. I see a lot more screws to take out, so that's what we're gonna do. Probably the better idea would be to work on the screws that are possibly holding this thing still in the container, which look like they're all on that side. Little elbow grease, and voila! She is apart. Nice pieces. The problem with being a junk dealer, the problem with being a recycler, is you get things and like, that's neat. What can I use that for? Can I make that into something? It's half the battle, is just realizing that you need to throw things away once they're broken up and no longer in use. The other thing to do is I want to get these wheels off of here. But if I leave these wheels on here and I just get this base off of, this extra wall frame off of here, and I leave the base alone and the base is not too damaged, I could then use that base as a little dolly and move things around. So I might just keep that in one piece. I'll take the rest of this apart on my own time when I can actually probably end up getting the Sawzall and which is what I probably could have done to begin with, but get a Sawzall and cut it here and get this extra piece off here and then use this bottom piece as a dolly for some other project, for some other time, for some other item. And these pieces are very interesting, and all this is very interesting. And I'm thinking now that another one of my ambitions is to have a garden. I've been in this property for 20 years. I've had gardens every year. And every year I've not had good gardens. So these actually could be used as identifiers. Put them in the ground, right on here in some kind of ink, or even just have labels and put a paper label on there, put on there, or some kind of label, WD-40. Duct tape, colored duct tape, and with the Sharpie marker, right on there what it's going to be that year, and stick it in the ground. Now you have so I'm reusing the plastic. I'm not putting it into the recycle company. I'm actually going to use it for garden stakes in my garden. I could actually use it as, I know when I was a kid and our dad had us help him with the garden, he would have sticks and posts, and he would put stick on one end and stick on the other end, put a string in between, and it would tell where the seeds were going. And these pieces have holes right here, and I could put string through there and string through there and put them in the ground, and it would show me where my plant would go. That would be only good for items like potatoes, or the initial growing of corn, but after corn got so high, you would have to pull these out so the stalks would continue to have room to grow. Items like pole beans and other things that would grow up, these wouldn't be very, very good for. Items like radishes, that would be good to at least keep the line going. But yeah, you might see these again a little later on with another video that I do in the garden. So I think I am going to keep these. The other problem now is, where do I keep them? At any rate. All right, so here's the big contraption. It again has screw there. This is the piece we want, because this part here is steel, and around the steel is going to be copper. So we want this engine out. That's the big push, is to get the engine out. Probably end up speeding up this portion. When it comes to the video, it's boring watching someone take screws out of something. I understand that. When I watch videos myself, I watch people take things apart, and I'm thinking, man, why didn't you speed that up? It's kind of boring watching you take screws out with a manual screwdriver. So, all right, another piece for the shred bin for the plastic. There's another screw. Everything comes apart, one way or the other. The neat thing is finding ways to take things apart, finding easier ways to take similar things apart without having to use a hammer. I mean, not all things require a hammer, some things do. Trying to see what is still holding this piece together. All the rest of these screws that are here went to the plastic pieces, which allowed it to hold onto the frame. So at this moment in time, I am not going to be taking them apart. I am, however, seeing, I don't know if you can see it in the camera or not, but there is a screw right there. I bet if I unscrew that, this whole piece will come off. So let's see if I'm right. It's coming loose. We'll see. Don't know, it's all an experiment. All right, screws out. Oh, look at that. There's the engine. There's the engine. And I saw a glimmer. Not sure if the camera's going to pick that up or not. There's copper in there, what looks to be copper. The next trick is to figure out how to get this piece off and this piece off in order to get the inside out. And unfortunately, these are riveted together. So I may be able to put this in the vise, put my chisel in there, and start prying like crazy to see if I can pry these pieces away from each other. If I do that, I'll stop and show you what I did, and then I'll continue it around to get the piece off. This is a very heavy unit. I would give it at least 2 to 5 pounds. I do have a scale, but I don't have it close enough to weigh it at this moment. But yeah, so that's cool. I'm glad we got that engine off. Something I did notice in the fan contraption is there's steel right there. I believe that's steel. Let's see if the magnet can pick that up. That's not steel. Oh, wait a minute. No, that's not steel. That might be aluminum, cast aluminum in that fan. So I want to get that fan out now. And look at there. More Phillips head screws to pull out. Hope you guys are finding this video interesting. If you ever do buy a portable roll around must fill it full of water in order to get it to work as an air conditioner, then you know what's in it. You'll know, you've bought it for X amount of dollars, and you know exactly what's in it, so that if you do want to take it apart or sell it to somebody and try to get some extra money back from it, then you can. That still, to me, I think is steel. Based on computer parts and printers, that would be a steel rod. And yes, this sticks. The device is, this fan assemblage thing is much heavier, but it does stick to the magnet. I just can't pick it up with the magnet. Magnet's not technically that strong enough. So this will have to come out. From looking in the innards, this steel piece does not run all the way through. So I've misplaced my wire snips. I was hoping I could find them real quick. And you know what? If they were right in front of me, I wouldn't have found them. There's a possible chance, after getting a good grip, that I could get that out. But it's too big for my snips, and by the time I squeeze it through, based on pressure and the fact that these are triangular shaped, as soon as I squeeze, it's going to slip right out. So I'll have to wait on that for another day. That's interesting looking. That's a rubber mat right there on top of another piece of what appears to be aluminum. I really don't have a need for this fan blade just yet, but I'm thinking, because now if you look at what it is, it could be used in a river or a water wheel area to spin, and as a water wheel, then with the wind, and make power. That's how they did it years ago. They just got in the water, and it was like the water wheels for the mills and the gins. But yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Break these out. Safety glasses on. What a mess we're making. Good thing the spouse has no idea about this portion of the game. I'll have to clean that up later, of course. And there we go. Just want to make sure that's not plastic, though, because that's starting to feel funky, like it might actually be plastic. In which case, I should have done that first. It's in there with that plastic, that rubber seal. It's in there pretty good with that rubber seal. You can see the seal bending a bit. You can see it push a bit. If I can push that in, nipple pops out like that. So everything is an experiment. And yes, in previous videos I say, and this is the point in the game where I'm using my bare hands and it looks like, man, this is not safe. If you do any more of this, you're gonna cause yourself to cut your hand. Just leave it for another day. So when I was doing recycling and taking apart computers and stuff, and I would get to a piece like this, and I didn't want to forget about it, but at the same time, I didn't want to be stuck on just this piece when I knew I had another piece that I wanted to get free. So I would then put this in a pile and call it my to take apart later pile. So that's what we're going to do with this piece. We're going to take it apart later. See down the middle, there's nothing in there. It's nothing holding this piece together. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before and just break these pieces away. Luckily, I have a broom that can sweep all that stuff up. All right. That can go into the plastic. Hard plastic, mind you, but still plastic. The recycler. And here is a new break for another day piece where that piece of metal does not go all the way through. But I can now put this in the vise, get a good pair of pliers, and take that out. Or get a heat gun, heat this up until it becomes a little more malleable, and take it apart. Or find somewhat of a seam, take it apart. Or, because I'm looking at things now and looking at it a little better, that is dead center. And so I could then take these pieces off, clean this up a little bit, make that into a mini makeshift clock. I could take this piece out, go to Hobby Lobby and get a clock making kit, put a clock in the back, get the pieces for the clock, and then make a clock out of this piece of plastic. So I'm upcycling. The ideas of upcycling instead of just taking things apart and only getting the goods that will give me money out of it. I'm now upcycling it, and then maybe I could sell it as a yard sale or at another location. I could also make this into a compass. I could make it into a sundial, leave it outside, and then when the sun comes down and as it moves, and then you can see where the shadow is, and you can find out what time it is. So there's lots of things you can do with pieces that come apart. You just have to put your mind to it. So I'll hang on to that. I don't really necessarily need all these plastic pieces. They're sharp. They could cause problems. So I need to really just get these off of here. Clean this up a little better. Might actually use it in my garden. So in future videos, if you happen to look around and you're watching some of my garden videos, you'll see this and you'll say, hey, I saw that when he took it apart. I know exactly where he got it from. So I'll clean that up later. Make it so it's not so sharp and doesn't hurt anybody. And yeah, I think I'll use that again in my garden. Maybe actually make a sundial out of it. Be able to tell what time it is. All right. I don't think there's anything left to do that would be of interest in this video. I'm gonna have to get some pliers and hold these pieces down to get these screws out. And then this entire contraption can go to the recycling company for plastics. I was looking at this piece here as I was taking this apart, and believe it or not, this piece appears to be steel. As noted, I can bend it. To take a better crack at that, look at there. It's attracted to the magnet. So while I would have probably put this entire piece in the plastic recycler, I would have been amiss because I actually missed this steel that needs to come off. Held on by a final screw. Maybe. It is a screw, so whether it was held on by it or not has to be decided. So this entire thing would go into my steel scrap. I don't want to think about it hard enough to see what I could do with it. If I thought too hard about it, I would wrap it around in a circle maybe. Now it's a cylinder. What could I do with it being a cylinder? I don't know. I could, yeah, no. It's steel. It'll go into my steel bin. Steel sells for 6.5 cents a pound. And it's just more steel that goes into my steel bin. I'll get the rest of these screws out of here and call it a night. So I hope you've enjoyed the video and my antics and everything else. Have a good night.